Well, good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock, and we want to not keep you here any later than we have to be here, but we want to thank you all for coming and learning more about our project that we've got proposed for the back of the church. First of all, I want to welcome you to Gates Presbyterian Church. You know you're in a Presbyterian church because we don't have air conditioning. We don't have pews on the cushions. We don't have stained glass windows for you to stare at while I'm giving you a boring sermon up here for the next 2 hours. So it's just us, just us. But I want to welcome you anyway, and my name is Tom Ward. I'm on the trustees board here. We take care of the buildings and grounds of Gates Presbyterian Church. And I'm also on the property development team, which has been working with the group of people that collaborate this project. We're hosting this informational night to let people know about the details of this project called Churchview Commons and to answer any questions or concerns that you might have about it. I also want to note that our pastor, Reverend Laura Bachman, really wanted to be here tonight, but she had to be called away for a family emergency and regrets that she can't be in attendance. I want to thank the town officials that are here tonight from the planning board, town board, and zoning board, and other interested parties from the town government. You've been very helpful working along with us up to this point, and we hope that we can answer any questions that you have. So let me give you a little bit of history about Gates Presbyterian Church. Founded in 1828, we're just 15 years younger than the entire town of Gates when they were founded. This building that was built and occupied around 1967. Our mission statement is this, quote, "As a joyful community empowered by the Holy Spirit, we worship God, we follow Jesus, and love our neighbors," unquote. But our children here at GPC wrote an affirmation of faith that we've used a few Sundays here, and it's even more accurate. They said, "We believe that God calls us to to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with God. We believe that we should love our neighbors, help each other heal, and always do unto others as we would have them do unto us. We believe that God calls us to love extravagantly, no matter what." I thought, coming from our youth, that's pretty profound. So you can guess, we are a mission-oriented church, and we show that by sponsoring 3 AA groups here each week, an Al-Anon group, 2 bereavement groups, a food pantry, making 70 bag lunches each week for the St. Joseph's House of Hospitality. And during the school year, listen to this, we make 50 backpack lunches for the children to have lunches on the weekends at the Disney School and the Neil Armstrong School right here in Gates. And we support many other missions, and some are local, some are global. We have a 28-year relationship with the Mayans in Guatemala, which I'll be going to in November with another parishioner from the church. And there's many more organizations that we do partner with and support, and we're happy to support them. So Churchville Commons is the realization of our long-range plan, recognizing that continue to be an active church, we have to get out of the building and form relationships and partnerships with our neighbors while we work towards building a more just and equitable community in a way that improves the entire community by so doing. This project responds to the need that we identified for better housing and a safe environment for the future tenants. This has been in the planning stages with the town for 5.5 years now, but the planning actually started well before that, during discussions and ideas and plans for the future of this well-loved and well-established church. So tonight from the Gates Presbyterian Church Committee, Properties Committee, we have Jane Bittner-Schertz, who's our chair, and Bill DeSaro, Ed Coons over there, and Pastor Laura and myself have been working with Pathstone and the YWCA to put this together. So we're joined tonight by Jason Sackett, the president of Pathstone, which is a not-for-profit company, and in a later point, he'll introduce his staff. And here's what Pathstone's mission statement and vision statement say. Quote, "Pathstone builds family and individual self-sufficiency by strengthening farm worker, rural, and urban communities. Pathstone promotes social justice through programs and advocacy. Their vision statement says this, quote, Pathstone is a visionary, diverse organization empowering individuals, families, and communities to attain economic and social resources for building better lives, unquote. So when GPC started searching for a partner who could help us realize the dream of affordable housing, we found their vision and their mission statements to be in close contact with what we believe. And we have been impressed by their dedication, their commitment, and their professionalism throughout this whole endeavor. We're also joined by representatives tonight from the YWCA. We have Carrie Michael Wynn, and she'll introduce her staff at a later point. But here's their mission statement that I got offline. Nationally, the YWCA has been at the forefront of the most critical social movements for more than 160 years, from women's empowerment and civil rights, to affordable housing and pay equity, to violence prevention and health care. Once again, their mission is rooted in nearly 2 centuries of work and experience, and also fit into our vision and mission. We're also pleased to partner with them in this endeavor. Now, the reason I tell you all of this is not to put you to sleep or anything. It's to let you know that this is not just about an apartment building. We identified a need in this community of Gates for this, and so we look at it as more building a dream, of building a stronger and better community. It's not just about wood, concrete, and asphalt shingles. It is so much more. And because of this unique collaboration, this project won the New York State Housing Grants in a highly competitive field of applicants across all of New York State. As we proceed with the informational night, I must request that your questions and comments be kept respectful and not be repetitive. We are here to answer your concerns. So hopefully everybody's used the sign-in sheet so that we can follow up with you if any follow-up is necessary. And when we get to the point where we ask for your questions and concerns, please step to one of the 2 microphones and speak directly into it so that we can all hear the question. So I'm going to ask Jason Sackett to give us some opening comments first and then introduce his staff that's here tonight.
Okay, we're on, we're live, okay. So that is a tough act to follow, Tom. Yeah, to Tom's point, so just to give you a little bit of background on Pathstone, we started in 1969 as a very small not-for-profit organization, and we're focused on rural and farm worker housing only. In the course of the past 50 plus years, we've grown into a footprint of 9 states and Puerto Rico. And what our team focuses on is housing and management and ownership of housing. So in Indiana, New York, and Pennsylvania, we have just about 3,000 units that we've acquired, built, and under our purview. We also have existing developments right here in the town of Gates. So as Tom alluded to, we've thought long about the process. We're very experienced with getting these competitive funds. We have our approvals in place. We're hoping to close the project with all the competitive financing secured, hopefully as soon as possible. Just to give you a little bit of detail on my team, we have Roger here with Greater Living Architecture. He's designed and helped us manage the design of hundreds of units in the New York, Rochester market. We have Pete Gorman with Marathon Engineering, who does the civil work for Churchview Commons and many other comparable projects. My specific team that is here is Kathy Bryan. She's our Senior Vice President of Asset Management. We also have Josh Sankowski, who is our Corporate Director of Traffic of sorts. He's very great and keeps us all in line and on point. We have Devin Corbin. She is our supportive housing specialist and senior development associate. We also have Joshua Fraz, who is working on this development, who is a real estate developer. So this is a very experienced team. Again, in the interest of being good neighbors, we want to answer any questions, concerns, and really try to eliminate any misinformation that may be out there about Churchview Commons.
Hi everybody, this is Carrie Michael Wynn from the YWCA. I feel like I'm home at a family reunion. We have spent a lot of years together dreaming about this project and really making it come to fruition. Many of you have come to previous community meetings where we have gained a lot of support. The love that this community has shown for this project is truly overwhelming. The YWCA has been rooted in this community for over 140 years. That tells you that the communities trust us, they care about us, and they want to back us up. We even have some of our investors here today. Everything that we do is backed by a promise to communities to make sure that it's safe, viable, that we're creating opportunities for families and individuals because everybody deserves a safe place to live. The biggest part of our portfolio is supportive housing. We have relationships with landlords in your community and in other rural communities and in the city of Rochester. We have these fabulous partnerships with developers like Pastone where they help to develop the projects, and then we come in as the service provider to make sure that our families and our individuals are well cared for and that they are regularly working on goals that lead to economic independence, and so that they can be good neighbors and thrive and work in the communities that they live in, and that we send our little ones to schools where they can thrive and get great educations. This is something that we value so very much. We are thrilled about this project. When I first learned about this, I remember coming here and looking at the proposed site, and I was just like, oh my word, this is so perfect for families. The love that we've gotten from the Gates Presbyterian congregation has been tremendous. Many of the congregation have come and they have welcomed some of the residents to get involved in activities. They've hosted carnivals. They have brought donations to us. It's purely an act of love and so special. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Phyllis, Luke, and Bill. Phyllis is amazing. She does an amazing job partnering with our public safety officials, our community members. We want to make sure that we are reducing reliance on services that can be avoided if necessary. We have strong partnerships with the police department, ambulance departments, neighborhood associations. Our president and CEO, Dr. Henry, is here. She disclosed to us that her family actually were members of this church. We care very much about this community. I am so happy that there has been such a great turnout today, and I just can't thank you enough for all of your love and support. I am happy to answer any questions that people might have about the population that we're serving, the services that we offer, the governance that we are accountable to, all of those things. So thanks for having us.
No. Tom did a fine job of explaining. Yes, it is a first. Tom did a fine job of explaining how this all began and why we are invested in this after all these many years. And it has taken us a long time to get to this point. And we have toughed it out, and we have prayed about it, and we have persevered, and we have been cheerleaders for this. And when COVID hit, it was no favor to any of us, and that set us back considerably in timelines with getting the grants and everything. But now that we have all that in place, now we're really looking forward to closing on it all and being able to start our construction in the very near future. But no, I'm just here in case there's a question about the church or something that Tom didn't answer. But I think it's really up to the two of you, because you're the two that have all the information on this, more than we do.
So that pretty much introduces the staffs and the people that have been involved in this over the years. And so now I'd like to open it up, and let's hear some of your questions, let's hear some of your concerns. There's been a lot of misinformation going around out there, and we want to make sure that we're transparent, as we have been from the beginning. And so we want to be sure that everybody who has a concern gets it cleared up tonight. And if there's something that we haven't thought of, it'll give us an opportunity to respond. So, who wants to be willing to be the first person to come up to the microphone, either one of those microphones, and give us your questions, give us your concerns so we can address them. Okay, we got somebody brave here. Come on up. Hi.
So I'm new to this. I really don't know much about the project. Can you give me the facts of this project? How large it's going to be, where you are in the process, who is going to live here, how you're going to get these residents, and what services you're going to provide?
Okay, very good. Jason, I think you could take that one first.
Yeah, so great question. So from a footprint standpoint, the building is about 55,000 square feet in total. It's a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units in a 2-story elevator building. The design is also highly advanced. It's all electric. We also are proposing solar panels to offset our usage, and it's very high quality materials. So you can see a lot of what we're proposing with this rendering here. In terms of who is being served, this is a family project. What we typically do is look at the market. In this case, we commission a market study. One of the interesting facts about the town of Gates was that so many people were paying more than 30% of their income for rent. So we know housing shortages and supply and demand are creating the problem. So, just to put it in terms of who we're serving, we're looking at entry-level professionals. We're looking at single parents. We're looking at folks that, quite frankly, can't pay the $3,000 a month mortgage or quote-unquote luxury apartment rent. There's also units set aside with our partnership with the YWCA, and I'll let Carrie speak to that. But we are serving, at-risk and vulnerable populations with their support.
Just to add to that, when you leave here, when you go back out in the parking lot to your vehicles, this structure, this Churchview Commons is going to be way at the back of our parking lot on that empty lot back there, that empty property that we own.
So for the set-asides, YWCA is committed to working with family members that may have experienced some setbacks, some challenges that they might need to overcome. We have one of our funders here from the Wilson Foundation. Not too long ago, they commissioned a study called the SHIFT study. And what they found from between Buffalo and Albany is that there is a high number of women in particular that have experienced significant trauma that exists because of domestic violence or racism or poor economic conditions. And typically that's the type of population that we see at the YWCA. As I mentioned, we've been around for 140 years, but today our biggest portfolio is housing. We have 2 shelters that are located in downtown Rochester, and so we get usually women and families. We do serve men. People are confused about that. We have a lot of men that come in that are parts of that are part of a family, and we have men that are raising children. All of our families that come to the YWCA are low income. They really just don't have a lot of resources. 90% of our women have experienced trauma. A lot of our women have experienced substance use disorders or are experiencing mental health conditions that are preventing them from really kind of getting on to the next step in their lives. But what I will tell you is that the reason we've been around for 140 years is because we know how to work with these families. We know that in this congregation there are a lot of members that have family members who have experienced domestic violence. We help these individuals build economic viability. We help them get jobs. We help them get treatment if it's untreated. We help them get connected to the communities that they want to live in. We help children gain access to really high quality schools. All of these things are really helping to lend to a vibrant community. We need individuals that can come into communities and work and have access to good education. So we don't fear our families. We don't fear children. We don't fear people that might be struggling. And we're super proud to be able to create opportunities in this community for individuals that might need the kind of support we can offer.
Jason, you might want to address the second part of her question as to where we stand in the process at this particular juncture.
Yeah, so we have our local approvals in place. There's some issues I think we need to work through with respect to zoning extensions. However, we do have the financing all approved from New York State Homes and Community Renewal. So to Tom's point, a part of our competitive process is we were one of 21 projects selected in the entire state, and I believe we submitted this project in 4 funding rounds. So it takes, unfortunately, this long for us to obtain the financing, but we're here and ready, and again, hopefully able to commence construction in the next couple of months.
And I'll also add that the YWCA was able to successfully secure funding from the state through an Empire State Supportive Housing Initiative. We will receive $600,000 each year so that we can provide services and rental subsidy. The rental subsidy is so that the housing is affordable. We want people to be able to stay here permanently. And so that rental subsidy significantly helps. And typically, and we have a lot of experience with this, typically what happens is that as individuals gain income, their rent will go up and adjust, and our subsidy will reduce, but our services will never go away. Services will stay with this project forever. We have a 24/7 on-call model. We have staff that will be here for most of the hours that people are residing here. We do case management, meaning that every single person that's part of our program sets up goals that we monitor, and they have to achieve them. And if they don't, we might reset. We might identify new goals, but we never go away. We're here.
And then just to piggyback off of that too, so we Passstone contracts with the YWCA for a portion of the project. The other portion, which is under our purview, we also have our own dedicated 24/7 site staff. So we're very experienced with management and ownership, and we have a plan ready to execute.
Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't your participation with the women quite similar to what we have at Coldwater House right at the moment?
Yeah. I'm good friends with Anna Bleisman, who is the CEO of Open Door Mission, and Coldwater House was opened up for families, which gained a lot of support from the community, which I applaud. The fact that that project was supported and cared for to fruition is really, really impressive. We see that this would be a wonderful opportunity to have women exit Coldwater and come into a permanent supportive housing environment so that we can continue to work with those families.
Okay, does that answer your question pretty much? Okay, next question or concern? Good evening.
Good evening to all of you.
Hi.
You had mentioned you have other units in Gates. I'd like to know a little bit about those, what type of housing that is, okay, type of families that live there. You also mentioned that it's possible at-risk residents. I'd like to know a little bit more about what you're talking about there. Another thing that's kind of important is, are these going to be long-term leases, short-term leases? And who is going to provide for an at-risk family relative to their daily needs. That's it.
Okay.
Sure. So I can start with the last part of that question. So when people hear the term homeless, they think a lot of things. So what I was referencing was at risk of homelessness, which is also an important collaboration that we have with the YW. So these may be folks, quote unquote, couch surfing, or living with extended or close family, things of that nature. How I like to analyze this is, a lot of us are one or less paycheck away from just that scenario. So that's the type of people we are serving with the units. With respect to Pastone, we also have, I believe, 3 developments, Pre-Ran 1, 2, and Elm Grove Apartments, which, okay, yep, so thank you, Kathy. Two developments that were developed in the late 90s and early 2000s, and the population is very similar, families and workforce housing.
There were several parts to that question. Carrie, did you want to address anything there? Or?
Yeah, I think Jason mentioned we say there's terms that are industry terms at risk. People that we propose serving is very similar to the people that we see in a lot of our apartments that we own and operate and partner with other developers and owners. Quite frankly, these are people that just don't have money or might be experiencing some mental health that, as I mentioned, is the result of some sort of traumatic event. There might be people that have used substances. Oftentimes, we look at substances as something that people do to heal. And we know that's not the right method to heal, but oftentimes that is what happens. Mental illness, undiagnosable. I mean, a lot of people these days are suffering from extreme anxiety, might have mental illness that was cognitive in nature. This doesn't mean that people don't deserve a safe place to live and that they don't belong in the community. This means that they should be loved and cared for and given the services that are lacking. We have partnerships throughout the community. We know how to get people connected. I don't know if people have seen, but I mean, we are in a housing crisis. People cannot afford housing right now. People that are coming into our shelters are a little bit different than what we've seen in generations past. These are working families that just can't afford to live in homes. It is working class families that are now struggling with homelessness and housing insecurity.
Jason, can you address the lease question?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We do have long-term lease requirements for all residents. So they're screened initially, and I believe the lease term is 1 year, which renews. So it's a long-term lease for every apartment.
Questions?
You mentioned you mentioned leases. Being a good neighbor to your neighbors is very important. What terms in the lease will encourage people to be good neighbors to their neighbors, and what kind of support is provided for people to be good neighbors?
Sure, that's a great question. So our typical lease, and I'm a direct person, but in our industry, we have to have permission to sneeze. So our lease is really twofold. So a lot of it has to do with our industry-specific experience. So we have provisions in there that we have learned through challenges over time. Other funder requirements are built in there as well. So from a mission perspective and also an economic perspective, we're on the same page. We have all of those alignments because we need to have rents for the property to be, feasible. So Kathy may be able to speak to some of our more granular provisions, but
this, and then, heaven forbid, then we would take further steps if the action wasn't corrected. Did I cover the leases? Okay, thanks.
And I'll add from the services side of things, we actually have addendums to leases. The leases are very legal. And we have addendums that say that people that live in our units, they need to engage with us. They need to partner with us to follow the goals that they've outlined. We have also a lot of governance from the provider of the state who is providing the service dollars. They come in and they do audits, they check our charts, they make sure that people are doing what they need to be doing. But what I love the most about the people that we work with in our communities is we do a lot of opportunity building. We want our folks to be involved in the community. We have at the YWCA, for example, we have what we call mission ambassadors, and nothing gets by these ladies. They are out there growing gardens. There was a squirrel that was stealing the cherry tomatoes, and the ladies were not going to have anything to do with that. They put up the netting, etc. They have their own neighborhood watch committee. I'm telling you, I think they're more fearful of being in a community like this than maybe the community. They shouldn't be afraid, but they really care about the places that they live in. We have our ladies routinely will paint walls, or they take scrub brushes outside and clean the sidewalks because there is such tremendous pride for the communities that they live in. It's beautiful. If anybody ever wants to come down to 175 North Clinton and see what we've got going on, you would be truly impressed with how our women and families care about the environment.
From a church standpoint and viewpoint, we're going to use this as a mission opportunity for us in the church and partnering with the families that are going to live back there, maybe giving cooking classes for healthier recipes for children, doing tutoring, or there's a myriad of things that we're thinking of and wanting to put into effect. And so we'll be looking out for them as well. And we're not expecting that we're going to gain a lot of membership from that apartment building, but we're expecting to gain a lot of relationships from it and building those relationships through different mission projects that will help them become more self-sustainable.
We throw some pretty good neighborhood parties.
Did that answer your question all right? Next.
I just wanted to
Speak into the microphone, please, right directly.
I just wanted to make a comment, and I know Jason had brought up Career in Commons, but the YWCA has partnered with Pastone, with Career in Commons, way before I even got to the YWCA, and I'm going on 7 years. So I just didn't want people to think that we are just joining forces today and learning about each other, but we have worked very closely with this population, and Carrie has just talked so elegantly, but I just wanted to make that known that we are part of Career in Commons with Pastone as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Next question or concern? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hello, my name's Paul. I have a few questions, but I'll ask them sequentially, so I'll just ask and stand here. So I guess I was wondering, I know that you said that you're using lots of grant funding to provide the subsidies for the housing. I guess in a long-term financial plan, are you planning on using grants for subsidy for just the duration of the project, or is there a plan to stop being reliant on grant funding for the subsidizing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I spoke to grants, it was capital grants. So once construction is completed, those funds are expended. So for the long term, which happens after lease up and all of those steps, the rents will support the building.
And on the services side, the rent subsidy that's coming, we take a progressive engagement strategy. So while somebody might need a big portion of their rent subsidized initially, the ultimate goal is that we are reducing reliance on those resources because they're scarce. We know that. Our budgets we can work on a dime, let me tell you. We know how important they are to communities. We want to see them reinvested in communities. So ultimately, our goal is to get people employed, or if they have a disability that qualifies them for some sort of long-term disability benefit, we would help people get the benefits that they deserve and are entitled to. But ultimately, income is what our goal is.
Thank you. My next question was, how are you going to kind of pick or advertise to communities of individuals? Because I know the whole kind of concept of the housing is to have people who are struggling to have housing, or who are, as you said, at risk for homelessness. But how are you going to try and find those people to fill these rooms?
Sure. So Carrie may speak to her. Right.
And part of it is it's two separate programs from that.
Right.
You're asking about Pastoral apartments over that.
Well, it's kind of both, because I kind of understood that there were two projects that both seemed to be kind of aimed at the same goal, but kind of seeming to touch on different communities.
So, as a part of our lease-up process, we do what we call a lottery for the units. So that's publicly advertised. So it gives folks the ability to apply for housing well in advance of the construction completion that need it. So that's generally speaking how we approach lease-up.
I just wanted to add, when you ask about how do we market, that marketing plan has very detailed outreach expectations for LLA, which is the least likely to apply group, so that we are fair and equitable to everyone, so we're not just advertising to this area or that area. And we have to show our outreach efforts to the state. Then once all that is done, they go into the lottery. And then once that's completed, they have to go through a screening process, which is very detailed, if you will, income verifications and stuff like that.
Answer that question?
Yeah, I don't know if there was a YWCA portion to that question, or answer to that
Sure,
question.
yeah. For those individuals that might have special needs, we typically start engagement with the people that we work with much sooner than when they would apply for an apartment. So we're already, when somebody comes to us, there's what we call a vulnerability screening tool that we use. We want to make sure that they, if somebody is ill to the point where they need to be supervised on a regular basis, that's not the population that we're talking about. We want to assess people for their ability to thrive in communities. And so the vulnerability assessment is a tool that the entire community uses. And then what happens is that the individuals that have been housing unstable the longest tend to go to the top of the list, because we want to get them stabilized as quickly as we can and remediate any type of housing instability. So we have what's called coordinated entry in our community, and that helps us to prioritize families that might be unstable the longest.
Thank you. One more question.
Go ahead.
So I was wondering, you mentioned that on the YWCA side, there's kind of services, and there was kind of a 24/7 coverage type thing. I was just wondering, is there a person or an office embedded in the building?
Yep. We have a beautiful office. I'm super jazzed about it. The way that it's designed is that you walk into the building and it feels like a community center. There's a community lounge where people can come and socialize or have birthday parties or whatever the case might be. And right off of that, you will have property management offices and YWCA offices right in the building. We also have a lot of security measures built in. As I mentioned, some of the people that are, that we have served in the past are scared. And so there's cameras, there's fobs. People have to be screened, to be able to come in. They have to. Only the people that have the fobs can enter the building. They can be changed out in a moment's notice if necessary. But yeah, it is truly a community-centric type building.
Thanks. Okay, promise is my last question.
Go ahead, no problem.
But I just also wanted to ask, I mean, it sounds like you guys have gotten like the approval and the funding and all this stuff squared away already. But for those of us who want to like help support your project, like what can we do at this point? I in part ask because I'm a resident physician at Strong, and so there's a lot of the patients that I'm seeing in the ED right now are people who have housing insecurity. So I can understand like the real need for the type of project that you're putting forward.
I love that question. I love that question. It's interesting because we have a really strong partnership with the health systems. We want to have those partnerships. We actually have physicians that will come on site to our locations. We have a partnership with FoodLink. They will bring their mobile market here so that you can get fresh fruits and vegetables. We even do mobile mammograms right in the parking lot. But we love volunteers. We have programs like the Study Buddy program. So for our littles, we talked about even using a room over here where we could get community volunteers that can help people, the kids, with their homework. Or if somebody, we had a woman that was, I think she was 63 years old, and her dream was to get her GED because she never had the opportunity to do that. And we paired her with a mentor, and that mentor helped her get her GED at 63 years old. I've never seen a woman so proud in all of my life. We do crafts, and we do the carnivals, and we even do professional mentoring. So for our staff that might want to advance their careers, we sometimes have professional volunteerism, clerical, you name it. We will gladly accept the support from the community. Cash is nice. We like cash. In-kind donations. It's shocking how expensive feminine hygiene products are. So we have people that will do drives for us and just drop them off. There was a point in time where we're like, where is all of our toilet paper going? And it was because women had to make a tough choice about limited resources, and they rolled up toilet paper in lieu of personal hygiene supplies. So little things like that matter a lot to us.
And from our perspective, just to piggyback, we also have partnerships not only with the YWCA, but for instance, Rochester Regional Health. We're actually opening a senior development in the next 2 months that has similar services. From a strategic partnership perspective, we're always open to conversations about collaboration, but doing things like this is very impactful as well. So we want to be invited to communities in which we serve, not have this top-down approach. So.
And I also want to mention, we love our first responders. So we really engage our first responders. We had a day where, the fire department came over and they had the hoses and learned how to use fire extinguishers. And we built community around that. I know that I talked to the head of the ambulance department in Gates, and they were saying, what can we do to avoid unwanted calls? And I said, come on over. Let's talk to the residents about what a preventable call is and what a non-preventable call is. So we love that too. We love when our community responders get involved.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, I will give you my business card.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for doing this project. I can't tell you how extremely infuriating and heartbreaking it is to have patients who have no housing and discharge them to the street, knowing that they will be back in a matter of days with the same problems because they have nowhere to go. So thank you.
Thank you for what
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thinking about medical things like that, I do have some water up here, so if anybody wants some water, I think I could ask Bill DeSaro maybe would be happy to pass that around. So just raise your hand, we'll get you a little bottle of water to help keep you going. Hopefully we'll wrap up fairly soon. Kathy?
Thanks. I just want to point out that while it doesn't look it, Carrie and I have been providing services with our
Speak into the mic.
collaboration with Pastone and the Y for over 2 decades. We have a number of locations in the city of Rochester which we partner on. We have Cree Brand Commons here, which we have units that has the Y. We have units inside Rochester on Dewey Avenue, Eastman Commons, and we do services. Pardon? Selden, yes, we have out in Brockport a location. So the reason I point that out is because through that experience, you throw any emergency at us and we have a response. So we do that very well.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Ed Coons. I'm a trustee here at Gates Presbyterian Church. My wife Kathy and I have been members of this church for 40 years and members of Gates and now Shiloh. Anybody that's been around Rochester for any period of time knows that there's been a whole lot of inner city affordable housing projects that started out, and by the time they got to the time to recycle the roof that was on the original building, the building wasn't repairable. They've had some tremendous problems with affordable housing in the past. When Pastone was mentioned, part of my questions to Pastone, and I haven't heard you talk about it, that's why I'm here asking this, is how well are these buildings going to be constructed? How long are they expected to last? And how do you cover the day-to-day maintenance, and where are the long-term maintenance items, the monies for the roofs, the paving, all the long-term care that the building needs over an extended period of time? Where is that all going to come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this being a new construction project, we're very much out of the gate in that regard. So we're not looking to quote unquote, Band-Aid something or, make it last just a few years. So our funder guidelines have very detailed and very regimented design guidelines. So things must last, for example, roofs must be warranted for at least 30 years. High quality finishes, not just bare minimum code requirements, but that and. Specific to Churchview, we're also doing a very advanced energy and green model. So with that also brings not just consumption and energy savings, but it's also health and wellness with the residents. So things like having daylight in certain spaces, community spaces, we'll have a community garden, some of the other features Carrie mentioned. From the day-to-day perspective, the rents cover the need, just like any complex. The long-term perspective is a portion of what we set aside to fund those repairs. Plus, we capitalize at construction closing what's called a replacement and operating reserve. So there's adequate funds available to tackle major building components 30, 40, 50 years from now. But this development will be very, very high quality. As you can see here, the rendering only takes it so far, but we'd be happy to detail some of these design guidelines. We plan to send out something to those in attendance, so we can get very detailed on that topic.
And I'll also add, as Kathy mentioned, we've been around for a while. Back in the day when developments were built, there wasn't a lot of money for preservation. Now, knowing that a lot of these buildings have become old and decrepit and need a lot of repairs, the state is actually investing in preservation because they want their investments to last in communities. They want the communities to remain beautiful and vibrant and viable.
My mother finished out her life up until the nursing home, that is, in affordable housing in Canandaigua. And that building that she was in was designed and was actually I don't know what the term is, but they went through 50 years, and then the building was reevaluated and was set to go another 50 years. Is that basically the timeline that you're looking at?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. So we typically start thinking about rehabs at the 20-year mark, and then we conduct what's called an integrated physical needs assessment. So we have folks like Roger and his team come do, and they do a very thorough study of what needs to be replaced and how much it will cost, and we start to plan for it.
One of the reasons that I personally got behind this project was I worked all my life as maintenance, ended up as a facilities manager for Corning, and when I went and looked at the properties that you took us to and showed us, I was really impressed with the fact that they were not fall down, knock down kind of operations. They were A1, top of the line, and I was highly impressed by the ongoing day-to-day maintenance. They were doing an excellent job, so I'm going to be checking on these from time to time.
So we're signing you up to volunteer? Is that what I'm hearing?
Okay, what other concerns do we have?
Would you like me to bring the mic to you?
Yeah, we could bring a mic to you.
I'll address my questions and then you can answer them. First off, you didn't say how many units it is. You didn't say if they're 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. You didn't say if they're 3 bedroom, 5 bedroom. What's the criteria for an individual to move in? The criteria for an individual that may be coming out of transition from somewhere else. How many children are allowed per unit? Those are the questions that we need to have answered, so we can think about this as we go forward. Thank you.
Sure. So this is a 45-unit complex. It's a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. We have occupancy standards that fall in line with building codes and occupancy load. So we typically do not have more than 2 people per bedroom, if that answers that question. With qualifications, I think Kathy had alluded to those lease requirements. Is there anything more to expand upon there? So we typically would lease the larger units to families. So 1 bedrooms are typically occupied by singles.
You know, when my wife and I got married, we were told we could never have children. We were told that by our landlord. Anyways, I see a gentleman in the back here. He's got something to ask.
Good evening.
Go ahead,
I think my question is kind of focused on safety and security of both the residents and the community at large. Who will be on site working day to day? I know you said that you would have an office there from, I think, the YWCA. Will there be security on site? At what hours of the day? Also to the building itself, will the residence doors open to the outside? Or I think you mentioned there was a fob that may enter a secure hallway. Will it be a secure facility, whereas people coming into the building have to check in the office, and it's one of those things where I can't confirm or deny that person's here. It's a protected facility, and then also too, you mentioned that there's going to be outreach programs. Is there going to be somebody maybe assigned to a family or individual who will make sure that that person is getting the assistance that they need, and are staying on the up and up and things like that?
Sure. So our property management office is by design on purpose. It's adjacent to the main entry, but also adjacent to the YW spaces. We like to have that because when folks enter the building, we want to know who's coming and going. With security features, and I can read from a list that we have, but this gives you a good idea. We'll have video monitoring of common rooms, interior rooms, stairwells, so people can't hide. We'll have secure fob entry, as you alluded to. We also design in a way that's safe for families. So things like deadbolts on doors, limiting overgrown shrubs by doors and windows to limit hiding places. We'll also have private staff offices, so we've learned that certain folks like to speak about their challenges in private. With the community space, that's primarily for residential use, but we typically will let residents use that space for family functions. So things like birthday parties, things of that nature. So we also have third-party security when that's necessary, which is a contract that we hold.
Okay, and I mean, would that be something that would be like, under certain conditions, you would have them like, say, if the town required, you could say, well, they're going to be here between certain hours of the day, or certain days that we see a higher volume of people, whether it's a party or things like that.
Yep.
Certain conditions, and then also too, just to go back, will people be assigned like a caseworker or something like that to make sure that they're fulfilling their commitment?
Yep. So each person will have a coordinator or a caseworker, as you allude to. We've already begun conversations with the town about their needs, and again, to some of Carrie's points, to limit, service calls. That piece from our site management side, typically they work 8 hours a day, but they're available nights, weekends on a 24/7 basis, aka on call. We also have dedicated site staff that handle maintenance issues, and then we also have third-party vendors that will take care of the grounds, keep up with the snow removal, and all of that.
Okay, and one other question. During the screening process, when you're screening the applicants for residency, do you take into consideration sex offenders, non-U.S. residents? Is this facility open to sex offenders, non-U.S. residents, or are they also to placement-wise? Like if you have somebody who, may have, suffered a traumatic event, paired with, or living next door to perhaps, somebody who might be a sex offender or something like that. I would want to make sure that people were comfortable and felt safe in their
Right,
dwellings.
and so to that end, you're correct. We do have what's called Section 214 status requirements, which in short, folks have to have a reason to be here. And by here, I mean in the community, in the United States, things of that nature. Specifically to sex offender and screening overall, we do a very thorough screening process. So we're all on the same page there. We do not want undesirables coming into the building and creating havoc amongst our community.
Okay, so you said that the people would have to be in the United States for a purpose. Would they be like documented U.S. citizens or?
Yep. Yeah, that's one example. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
I'd just like to add from the church's standpoint, Pastone is leasing that property from us, so we're their landlord. And anything that happens back there that is untoward, that is not good, that is not the way it's supposed to be, Pastone has to answer to us also, because we're their landlord. And believe me, if we didn't think that this was going to be a safe environment and have the kind of programming and the kind of building that the congregation in this church has been wanting, this would not be at the point that it is right now. This would never have gotten off the ground. So just to allay some of those fears, because we don't want people in our parking lot accosting our congregational people. We don't want them breaking into our building. Our church is a very active church. In fact, tonight there will be a large AA meeting when you leave. There's always activities going on here, and so we have to look out for all of those folks, too, who are coming into our building. So we have to make sure that everything is safe and taken care of. So that's why we're in this with Pastone. Thanks.
Okay, another question? Nope, Ginny, hold on a minute. Got somebody coming up. No, come on.
I was going to say, can I sneak in here because my question has to do with security as well. I'm Ginny Barley. I'm a member of the church. But my question as far as security is as much the property as it is the building itself, okay? I have thoughts and nightmares of kids getting together because they all live in the same area and they're going to grow up together, having campfires and all that kind of stuff. And in this backyard back here, a campfire would go out of control. So I'm looking for security that's more in the evening, watching what's going on around the church itself. I take care of the memorial garden, and I don't want to see my flowers ending up on Mama's kitchen table. Thank you.
This is a flashback to me going into a cemetery to get flowers for my mom one Mother's Day. So I'm sorry. I can totally appreciate that, and I can tell you that Our Ladies, our families are going to cherish the gardens. They're going to flourish. And I just lost my thought. Campfires, yeah, no open fires. It was interesting because we have a staffing model for support services that consists of 2 case managers. They would each have a caseload of about 12. They're required to meet with people on a regular basis. They go into units and check for cleanliness. They check for any safety hazards. We did have an evening staff person that was assigned and some per diem staff that would come in to cover some non-traditional hours. And so we said, our staffing model is not set in stone until about 3 months before the project opens. And we were happy to get feedback. I think the head of the ambulance crew at a town meeting that I was at said that the most prevalent calls come in around 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, oh, I didn't realize that. I was actually surprised to hear that. And I said, we still have time to look at our staffing models. We can help provide extra security and staff on site if we need to do that.
And just to add to that, that's the Pass Stone approach too. So we have a plan, but we have the ability to be flexible and modify the plan if challenges come up. I think a part of our experience with challenges, specifically with children, is the project will have, community space, a playground. There's going to be exterior features to keep the children engaged and away from doing those types of undesirable things.
But you know what? Kids grow up. And then they've been there for a while and they're very comfortable. My question is more about your plans for security for the property itself, the overall property itself. We also have a garage out in back that has all kinds of fun machines and lawnmowers and all that kind of thing. That's one of my concerns, is having kids find out how to get in there and do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So a part of our development, we're putting in site lighting and things of that nature, which draws away those types of things. When you think of like a dark parking lot, that's where folks tend to congregate if they want to partake in things that we don't want to happen. So site lighting. Specific to storage spaces, we're actually going to expand upon the storage spaces and incorporate spaces for the church, but also for Pass Stone maintenance and site managers. So that will all be secured the same way the building will be secured.
Thank you. Olivia? Good evening.
Good evening, Tom. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm the executive director at Cameron Community Ministries, and I'm so grateful for this project that you're doing. Housing is a human right. And so I think if we begin to look at that in that manner, some of the other things that we're considering, at Cameron, I would like to say I've been there 3 years. When I first came, we had a lot of the problems that I've heard people talk about here. But our outreach program really helped us because we began to build credibility and trust from the community, and the violence and the things that were happening, the vandalism on our property, are down to zero now, and I'm so thankful for that, and I really attribute that to the work that we're doing in the community, because we're, have the basic needs, food, we don't have shelter, but clothing, we have after school, we have an after school satellite program here in Gates at Rochester Academy Charter School. There is nothing, and I will stand on this, that can happen at Cameron that someone in that neighborhood is not going to come to me and tell me later who did it and where they are and everything. So the trust and credibility from the staff there and the community will embrace this project. It may seem, a bit out of, belief right now, but people are happy to be housed. We see unhoused people all the time, and it's difficult. You sleep where you can. It's not because they want to be there. We talk to them. There are things that have happened in their lives. I have met a college professor. I met someone that was a professional musician. Everyone is not, someone that we sort of, the stigma that we attach to our unhoused community. To our residents, we do street medicine because some of our unhoused individuals don't want to go into traditional facilities because of the way they're treated. So I would just like to say that I do believe that once this community is together, that they will be cohesive enough to be grateful and thankful for what they have, and that they will embrace it and own it. That's what we want them to do everywhere we're working with our unhoused community. And so again, thank you so much for this, and please let Cameron know Gates is a great partner with us for many years. So please let us know, the YMCA, Half-Stone, any of you, that we can help you in any way. We'll be more than happy to.
Well, we'll be talking to you, Olivia. Thank you. If this project goes through, thank you. Yes, sir. Good evening.
What sets you guys apart from like a CDS or a Nepal?
So CDS is developmental disabled individuals. DePaul typically serves individuals with significant, severely, persistently mentally ill adults.
Yeah.
So remember when I was saying earlier that we have a vulnerability assessment tool that we use? So individuals that have untreated mental illness that is to the point where they really need constant supervision, DePaul serves the needs of those individuals, whereas this doesn't require, the folks that we are working with don't necessarily need that level of supervision. Truly, there's economically, they need support. They might need connection to a provider, but typically with intervention, medications, good support systems, people stabilize and they become vibrant and thriving community members. So there is a distinction with some of the licensed programs.
So is the residents of this building right here, are they just going to be town of Gates people, or are you going to be bringing
Monroe
people
County.
in from anywhere?
Monroe County typically.
Okay, so it pretty much is kind of like a DePaul, where they have the lottery, move in.
Lottery
It's
for house, anybody could apply for the lottery. Yeah, this isn't all, it's not all special needs.
Yeah, and
but
that-
you did say there is quite a bit of, or you are going to have apartments for special needs.
Set aside, yeah.
Yep. So what makes Pathstone different is like a DePaul or CDS, they typically do 100% of their units as a set aside. We look at the community and we do set asides, but not the entire complex. So we like to serve everyone from seniors to workforce to families to farm
Well,
workers.
that's what CDS does too. Like they take 50 units and give them to veterans that can't do it. But you're still bringing in people with drug problems, correct? You said.
Somebody might be struggling with substance use disorder, yep.
Okay, so what keeps other people out of this area that she has a relationship with that has drug problems also?
So what you're asking is if somebody has a relationship with somebody that might have
You
another...
have somebody here that has substance abuse problems.
Yep.
What stops somebody else that she knows with the same problem coming here?
I think that's where the case management comes in hand. Because when we recognize that somebody has a substance use disorder, we're talking about things like changing behaviors. And if that person says, people, places, things, like if I'm true to and committed to recovery, because we're not going to allow people to sit here and, use drugs and drink and cause havoc. We're not going to allow that. So
Well,
we
you're not
would
gonna
set
be-
up
You're not going to be in their room watching them all the time.
we will have almost 24/7 staff.
I understand that, but you're not going to be able to watch them in their apartment. correct?
We monitor who comes in and out of the apartment. So if that person identifies a risk factor for them, maybe it might be another person, then we can do things like help them come to an AA meeting or an NA meeting to really avoid some of those behaviors, because we are very recovery focused. We don't believe people want to live in a perpetual state of crisis and illness. We are focused on helping people improve and become contributing members of society, just like any one of us. I mean, your neighbor, what do you do with your neighbor when they have rowdy people? We don't tolerate it. If you have a neighbor that is going to bring somebody unruly in, you call the police. You call somebody. We're going to do the same thing. We care about our community, and we care about the safety of our community, the neighbors. So no different than what you would do with your neighbor who is being unruly or bringing somebody into the space that shouldn't be there.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Good evening.
As I understand, correct me if I'm wrong. As I understand, the state is allocating $9 million, which is what the project is going to cost. Is any of that money, or some of that money, obviously, is going to be allocated for the church and then developer? Is any of that money or those funds are going to be also allocated to the town?
Yeah, so with our capital grant, most of those dollars will fund the construction of the building. In this case, we'll have a ground lease payment with the Gates Presbyterian Church that has a very long duration. This project will also put this space back on the tax rolls. So the town will receive payments for taxes, utilities, and things of that nature.
So there will be some funds allocated to the
Yes.
town? Because we know that there's, obviously having more people coming into the project, there's going to be an increase of services that the town is going to absorb, and eventually it's going to go back to everybody here, right? Everybody's going to be impacted financially. So I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, and there's very great research out there that shows that lower class, middle class people traditionally spend more in their community. So when you think about the proximity to grocery stores or some of the services and amenities that are available in this community, you're going to have a lot more people spending in this community, want to stay in this community, and want to be employed in this community. So it's going to, economically, it's a really wonderful opportunity to expand.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a side note, I used to be the building and grounds director at the West Side YMCA, and they're also tax exempt over there on Elm Grove and Miles Crossing. But I can guarantee you that the number of calls that you're going to get from, well, maybe I shouldn't say guarantee, but I'd be pretty certain that the number of calls that it'll generate from this project won't come close to the number of calls we had at the Y, for legitimate reasons. We've had smoke alarms go off that were faulty. We've had people fall off of treadmills. We've had people have heart attacks. There's a multitude of things. Dehydration. There was a lot of times when we had to call the first responders. And thank God Gates has got the best first responders that you could ask for. And they were always there for us, but there were a lot of calls. So it's a concern, of course, but I think I can't see in the future, but I doubt if you're going to have a lot of trouble with this place.
I know I just have to stand up and get to the microphone or he'll just keep talking. I'm Sally Christensen. I'm a member here at this church and have supported this project since the get-go. And I totally respect the questions that it took a long time to happen, but the questions about security. And I totally respect that. All along, it has sounded like the organizations involved are addressing those questions. There's still concerns. But my question really is about hurdles going forward. You mentioned something about zoning, something has changed. Just wondered what technical details still need to be ironed out to make this happen, to actually have our groundbreaking.
Sure. So when I mentioned zoning, the town has a 6-month reapproval process, so the project is currently approved. So that was my allusion there. I know some of the town officials are here too that could opine about the town code and that process, but we're as ready as we'll ever be, in our opinion, to start construction.
Next question. Is word about this meeting, you talked about misinformation that's out there, how is the correct information going to be conveyed to the community?
By them showing up here tonight.
There's a lot of people here, but a lot aren't.
Right, so I think one follow-up we'll have is have this information from this meeting. What we're going to do is compile this list of questions and answers and then get that out to the public that wasn't able to make it here tonight. So that's a next step for us all here, and I think continual engagement. So, our conversation doesn't end tonight. So we, as we spoke to, we want to be a trusted member of the community, and we want to address all of these issues head on.
And I just want to add, we had some meetings with the town, and I was so grateful to hear the feedback. But we are in the world of social media, and social media, you get one person that stirs the pot, and then all of a sudden you think that there's a national disaster. And I said it. I said, I even had to defriend my dad on Facebook because he was the typical old dude that sat on, at his kitchen table with his laptop, his Jenny Light, and he's a keyboard warrior. And he's a miserable person. And he takes it out on the keyboard and makes everybody think that the world is ending. And people fall for that, and that's so ridiculous. And Bob Duffy, he made a comment. He's like, at these town meetings, you hear from one person, and the reality is that there are 1,000 people in hopes of having these projects so the communities thrive. That's the reality that we're living in. This is nuts that, if there's disagreement over a project because you see something on Facebook or, your neighborhood page, that just pay attention to who you're listening to. It's probably my dad. I'm telling you, it's probably my dad.
The other thing I want to point out is that before we even started this project, we met with town officials to ask them, look, this is what we're thinking of doing. What do you think? Is this something we should go forward with? And we got the green light at that time to investigate it and go forward. Pastone has spent a lot of time and expenses on coming up with a site plan which has been approved by the town planning board at this point. Engineering studies, applications for grants, refund, we had to do those over and over again. COVID didn't help things because it slowed the state down by probably 3 years on those issues. And through it all, we've been persistent and moving forward, and it's been going in a very good manner. But we've had a lot of public hearings, including the zoning board over the last 5 years, because we go in and ask for an extension of that variance. And so there's been plenty of opportunities for people to come and ask their questions or voice their concerns, but we're at the point now where it seems to have built up to the point where we wanted to make sure that we got the community together, invited them. We're very transparent. Nothing has changed on our end since the time of the original application. And so it's all still the same people involved. It's still the same plan involved, and there's been no changes. So you have a question, sir, or comment? What's this going to do for what? For traffic.
So I believe for this project, a part of our conversations with the town involved giving a traffic study. So I can't speak to specific details of the study, but we typically have about a 50% vehicle utilization rate at our developments. So with 45 units, that's a fairly minimal impact.
Yeah, we have to get Monroe County approval for the road cuts and state approval, Buffalo Road. They've all had an opportunity to have input and study that issue as well. And I guess no one was really too concerned about the amount of traffic because we'll have 60 or 70 people come in here on a Saturday night for an AA group meeting or something. And it's just part of the mission. It's not going to be not have a detrimental impact on the traffic. As long as it's not something that hasn't been asked before, Ginny.
Can you tell me how the marketing will take place? Who does the marketing? Is it going to go through the Y, or is it going to be a general, open situation to the public?
Sure, so I can comment on that. So Pathstone takes the lead on the marketing of the units. The YW will take the lead in certain respects with the set-aside of units, but we follow one overall process. So when we get about 50% completed with construction, we go through an approval process with New York State where they look at our leases, they look at all of our documents, make sure, as Tom said, they're on the up and up and all compliant. At that point, they give us the ability to do marketing activities. So Pathstone will canvass people, from the area, including the town, to start what we call an interest list for the units. Yep. And then at that point, we'll also conduct, as we spoke to before, a formal lottery where interested applicants can directly apply as well.
Okay.
It will be marketed to the general public, or will the marketing be fairly focused?
No, so the general public and also those least likely to apply.
Okay, it's almost 7:30, and I know some people are probably here straight from work and haven't even had dinner yet. And so I'm going to say there's time for one more question. If anybody has a comment, an observation, a question that is really burning your soul that you want to hear about, please let me know now and come on up to the microphone. Can you? Yes. I can't answer that question. It's been, public hearings are published publicly and go out, and there's been, obviously people have heard about it now. Any other questions? Okay.
So you have...
Could you speak into the microphone, please, so we can all hear you?
You have Pathstone, which is low-income rental property.
Affordable.
I'm sorry?
Affordable property.
Low-income, affordable, yes. And you have YWCA, which is separate sort of properties.
No, all in the same property.
All the same properties. So what is the one-bedroom and the two-bedroom? How does that get separated?
So a lot of that has to do with demand. So Carrie can speak to their piece. Our piece, and when we say affordable specifically, that means a percentage that folks pay for rent.
Right.
So for instance, Amazon came up. So a delivery driver that may make $17, $18 an hour, we want to have them be able to have safe and high quality housing that's below market. So our units range from about $900 to about $1,200 to give you an idea.
Okay.
And again, there's not low income or subsidy that's attached to all of the units.
So will the affordable income housing
Use the mic.
apartments, will the affordable income apartments always be affordable income?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
how many of those affordable income apartments are there?
So there's 21. and then the entire property is bound by a very long-term, what's called a regulatory agreement. So, Pastone is not in the business of, housing people that, under an affordable model and then pulling the rug out later, like you hear with other developments. So, we want to be with and, in this community with these types of families for the long term.
You have a project right now that's in the town of Gates over on Lyle Avenue by Long Pond, and there's several apartment units in there, and it's been taken over by a new management company, and they're raising the rents from $800 and some dollars to $1,250, and then they're going to renovate and raise the rents to $1,600. So there's going to be a lot of people that are already town residents who are going to be looking for houses where they can live. Every place has a waiting list. Sally, this is it.
This isn't my question, it's someone behind me. Could you define target occupancy, please?
Sure. So we're targeting a September construction start. Our projects typically take anywhere from 18 to 24 months to complete with construction. So our lease up would be sometime in late 2026 or even into 2027.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come and to hear what we're proposing. And I think once we get it built, you're going to find that if you put your faith in it, it's going to happen. It's going to be a good thing for everybody. And we're going to work on, as a group, to make sure that it is good for everybody. So thank you all for giving up your evening and spending the time in this hot church with us. And we look forward to answering any other questions you have. We can stick around for a while if you want to come and ask us face to face. Thank you.
Thanks.